Happy New Year to all of you. It's a brand new year. It's a brand new start of an experience of our life, this 2024. It's so exciting to have Karan Ray here with us in reading chapter 29, being our word, commitment, and integrity, which is so, for me, the perfect start of the new year. So with that, I'd like to acknowledge the beautiful Amy Hardison, who wrote this magnificent book, and Alan D. Thompson for his commitment in the research that he did in creating the Book of Being, the Ultimate Coach. This book has changed my life, as I know it has changed so many lives in this whole wide world. It has planted seeds in the international world around being. And it's one that's created an impact and sent ripples across all of our lives in learning and in experiencing who we are and in the being that we are in every moment. So for me, it's asking myself, who am I being at this moment? Who am I being? So chapter 29, being word, being your word, commitment, and integrity. Today, Karan Ray will be reading this chapter for us, the most magnificent human right now who has sent ripples across all worlds in his way of being. And so thank you so much for saying yes, Karan. So appreciate you. So appreciate who you're being at all times. So thank you for being here with us this morning. So this book is this event, this community that we have created is the space to co-create for a deeper experience of the Book of Being and to further explore the being community, the opportunity for us to be together, to listen, to share, to experience the being that we are. So I'm going to ask all of you to sit for a couple of seconds. I'm going to invite you and encourage you to think of a word that, and you may have already chosen a word, think of a word that you believe might be a word that you would like to embody for the rest of 2024. A word that really may resonate for you, a word that you want to live into in 2024. And so I'm going to allow for a couple of seconds, and then if you would post it on the chat, we could acknowledge you for creating a new way of being for yourselves in this new year. So I'm seeing love, embodiment of peace, embodiment of commitment, simplicity, fearlessness. Wow. Embodiment of joy, of simplicity. Yes, commitment. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your word. Thank you for saying yes to embodying that which is so critical, important for you in your life. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. What a beautiful place to listen about you, to read about you, and to share about you. And it is so beautifully stated by Byron Katie. All we experience about anyone else is the idea that we have of them. It's the idea that we have of another. So please be aware that as you are sharing and you were to start to share from the idea of someone that's not you, we may lovingly guide you back to share about you. So thank you for listening, for being present. And I will pass this on now to moderator 2, our beautiful Emma Edwards. Emma, take it away.
Thank you so much, Martha. Thank you for opening so beautifully. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Commitment, being your word, integrity. This is going to be phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. This call has the possibility of changing the trajectory of your entire life if you allow it to do so. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being present. And I get an opportunity now to not only welcome the wonderful community that we are, but to say a special welcome to Karan Rai and to say thank you again for being here. Karan, would you like to say anything before I sort of get into the flow?
Just thank you for the invite. I am really happy to be here. What a lovely way to start my Sunday morning. And I'm really looking forward to spending the next hour or so with you beautiful souls. Thank you for the opportunity. Mwah.
Thank you for saying yes. I can't think of anyone better to read the chapter on commitment than your wonderful self. So thank you. And yeah, super excited. So everybody, this is the time we get to expose our books. Have you got a book? Who's got a book? Let me see your book. Wonderful. Ah, amazing. And if there's any newcomers actually today, can you raise your hand, your electronic hand or your physical hand? Wanda, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. Keep your hand up. If Jamie, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm just going to scroll over. Rebecca, your first call. Thank you so much. What an absolute treat you are in for. Amazing. Oh, Karen, thank you for being here. Isabel, welcome. Thank you for being here and part of our wonderful, connected, loving, committed community. So I get to choose. If you want to lower your hand now, I have a new task for you. So we always get someone to read the back of the book and the first 2 pages, and I have another opportunity actually after that, but I'll get the first two picked out first. So is there anyone who'd like to read the back page and the front 2 pages? Elizabeth, I see your hand up.
No volunteers today.
What?
No way. Can't
I'm gonna have
be.
to pick on you.
Emma, who are you feeling? Who are you feeling called to pick to read the first 2 pages?
You read the first 2 pages for us, Wanda? Yeah, would you be willing to do that? Thank you so much. Thank you, appreciate that. So Elizabeth will read the back, Wanda will read the first 2 pages. And I need another volunteer, though I don't know, maybe I'll just be picking someone in the room to read the vignette for today. Catherine Thomas vignette.
I see
Marion.
Marianne. Yeah.
Yeah, Marion, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is the way it's gonna go. We're gonna have Elizabeth read the back cover. Wanda will then go straight into reading the first 2 pages, followed by Karan reading our chapter, and then Marion reading our vignette. Now, as you're listening to the back page and the front 2 pages, if you want to choose a question, these wonderful, powerful questions that come up to be your lens, be your filter that you experience the chapter to, then I would invite you to do that and invite you to share that in the chat as well if there's anything coming up for you. And just another little reminder that for this to be the most powerful transformational experience, as you listen about you. And without further ado, I think we can get started. Yeah, if somebody can allow Wanda to unmute, that would be wonderful. And Elizabeth, will you kick us off, please?
Yes, thank you. Dear potential reader, As you may have noticed, there are no testimonials on the back cover of this book imploring you to read it. I vetoed that. The only testimonial I am interested in is the one you will have from reading and experiencing this book. Please do not read this book about me. Read this book about you. Read it about being. As you read, ask yourself, who would I need to be a more loving person? Who would I need to be a more effective parent? Who would I need to be to create a level of confidence that is remarkable? Who would I need to be at peace with who I am? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life that I can live? I promise you that if you read this book with the intention of expanding your state of being, you will do exactly that. Your experience will be remarkable. Who you are being is everything. Loving you. Be blessed. Be you, Steve Hardison.
Okay, so before you begin, Steve Hardison, note, thank you for reading the back cover and the first 2 pages each time before you read this book. I never wanted to write a book, and I haven't. I never wanted to have a book written about me, but here it is. This book is a gift from my wife, Amy, who wrote it, and my friend, Alan D. Thompson, who conducted the research and interviews on which it is based. And it's not just a gift to me, but to you too. And now you're reading it. So with your permission, I'll give you some suggestions on how to read it. You see, this isn't an ordinary book. It's not simply a biography. It's not a self-help book. It's not a literary classic. It's definitely not a book about how to coach. In fact, it's not a book about doing anything. It's a book about being. And it's a book about you. To access this book, ask yourself these questions as you read. Who am I being as a partner, parent, or friend? Who am I being as a leader? Who am I being as a member of my community? Who would I need to be to have miracles show up in my daily life? Who would I need to be to create value in the work I do? Who would I need to be to generate a life of abundance? Who would I need to be to alter my relationship with fear? Who would I need to be at peace with my past? Who would I need to be to step powerfully into my future? Who would I need to be present as a way of being? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? Who would I need to be to know that my life makes a difference? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to improve my relationships with the most important people in my life? Who would I need to be to read The Ultimate Coach and have a personal breakthrough in being wonderful me? The best part of this book about you, is that it is endless. The story goes on, and it's written by your being. Loving you, blessed, be you, Steve Hardison. P.S. Remember, every time you reread this book, please read the back cover and the first 2 pages before you begin. If you do this, your experience of this book will be totally different.
Karan, you can go straight into your reading now. Thank you so much.
Great. Happy New Year, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Just right before I begin, just very briefly, if you guys could just trust me on this and just close your eyes for literally 1 second. And I just want to have a conversation with your subconscious along with my own. The reading we're about to do is meaningful and important to all of us. I ask my subconscious mind and the collective subconscious mind to extract everything each one of us needs from this reading and allow it to deepen within our being. So it is. Okay, beautiful. Come on back to me, beautiful people, and we'll get going. Dave Orton, my buddy Dave Orton, haven't seen him in a while. How you doing? All right, here we go. Chapter 29, Being Your Word, Commitment, and Integrity. Sitting in the jury assembly room with 200 prospective juror was a pleasure for Steve, whose version of the quote, so many books, so little time, is so many conversations, so little time. He met a fascinating woman. Of course, it could have been a man, a banker, an auto mechanic, a grizzled hippie, a Harley enthusiast, a transvestite, an exotic dancer, a grandma ad infinitum. People fascinate Steve. But this time, it was a woman. She was interested in what Steve did. He said he had a book in the car that he would give her. Steve was chosen to be on the jury. She was dismissed. She left hours before he did. Some people would say, oh, well, that's how it goes. That's not how it goes for Steve. Anything that comes out of my lips, says Steve, I take action on. At the end of a long day in court, he drove an hour out of his way to deliver this book to her. Her words were predictable. You didn't need to do this. Steve's words were less predictable. I needed to do it for me. Why? Because if Steve says he's going to do something, he does it. It is his cardinal principle. He lives it, he breathes it. He taught this to his kids. As adults, they have each said, do you realize that most people don't do what they say? It is so frustrating. This is something that has always confounded Steve. One of his earliest memories is of his father saying he would take Steve to the mountains and not doing it. Doing what you say you will do, being your word, imparts power. Things get done, efficiency soars, frustration falls. It's so obvious. It is surprising how frequently people don't do what they say they will do. It is shocking how unaware people are of this discrepancy. When Steve asks a group of people how many of them kept their word, almost everyone raises his hand. When he asks his clients how often they do what they say they will do, most estimate high. Clayt Mask projected 90%. Then Steve sent Clayt off with an assignment to keep count of every time he did and didn't do what he said. When he came back to his next coaching session, Clayt's estimate had plunged to 20%. And mind you, Clayt is a high-producing, effective CEO. Steve explains, many people say, let's get lunch on Tuesday, knowing it's not going to happen. They don't even have an intention of making it happen. Sometimes people will make 2 lunch commitments for the same day and then cancel both if a better one comes along. They live in a world of doing what I want when I want to, and then use their speaking to justify the mess. That is shutting the barn door after the horse has bolted. For me, it's about honoring myself as my word. That starts at the moment of speaking. We live in a world that isn't rigorous about being your word. We let each other off for not being our word. When someone comes along who actually does what he says and holds others accountable for what they say, that person looks crazy, demanding, and excessive. But if you can't count on yourself, who can you count on? Steve uses an analogy to distinguish the principle of being your word for his clients. When a country's government starts printing money to pay for its spending, it causes inflation and reduces the purchasing power of the printed money. Alternatively, a government can limit the money it prints to what is backed by an equal amount of gold in the reserve. This is called the gold standard. It was widely used in the 19th and early 20th centuries. It worked because gold is real. Physical assets tend to hold its value. Most people speak like they're printing paper money. They throw out words like they don't mean anything. The more they speak, the less valuable their words become because they're flooding the market with words with no backing. We live in a verbally inflationary world. Being your word is talking like gold bars are coming out of your mouth. You are your word. People can count on your words like they are real. But one of the consequences of verbal inflation, explains Steve, is that we're forced to implement fudge factors. When certain people say they will do something, you know there is a slim chance that they will say that there's a slim chance that what they say will happen. You'd better have a solid backup plan, i.e. a fudge factor. With others, there's a 50% chance they will do what they say. You may or may not need a fudge factor. And then there are a few people you know you can count on, like their life depends on it. Steve asks, how can you become one of the few? What I speak matters, meaning my words materialize something, says Steve. They literally matter or create mass. No one is 100%, but if I say something, the odds are really high that I'm going to do it. If I don't, I clean it up. What I notice is that when people honor their words, like it really means something, their lives work better. Steve teaches and trains his clients on this principle. Brandon Craig was working at TimeMax, selling courses taught by Steve Chandler and Dennis Deaton to corporations. He relates, I had a meeting with Steve, and I was probably 2 minutes late at the most. Steve seized the opportunity to teach me about the power of being your word. In this case, the power of being where you said you would be when you said you would be there. I was 2 minutes late, and we spent about an hour and a half on this distinction. That meeting really opened up my eyes. I saw the impact of not being your word, and I saw the power of being your word. I was inspired. I was young, about 23, and looking to build a career. I saw that being your word is the opening act for success. That meeting impacted my life. Byron Applegate speaks for all of Steve's clients when he says, if you know Steve, then you know what your word is all you have, and commitment is how you know what to do next. Commitment. Steve was picking up a few things from the grocery store when his phone rang. The caller introduced himself. We will call him William. William said, I want you to be my coach. You'll have to wait in line, replied Steve. It was not the response William expected. Steve asked William what prompted him to call. William knew one of Steve's clients. He had seen his transformation. William wanted some of that. Again, he asked Steve to be his coach, upping the ante. He would fly him to Vegas in his personal jets so Steve could coach him in his home. He would pay at triple Steve's usual fee. Sorry, I can't be your coach. Why? First of all, I only coach in my office at my house. Second, because you want to own me. I am not ownable. William was intrigued. He saw enough of what was possible in working with Steve that he made a commitment to be in Steve's office on a specific date at a specific time with a check for $150,000. For Steve, it wasn't a done deal. He needed to make sure William's commitment was big enough to produce results. On the agreed upon date, at the agreed upon time, in Steve's office, Steve outlined for William what he would need to commit to if they were to work together. Number one, their work together must be the most important thing in William's world, not because he's working with Steve, but because they're working on William's life. Number two, he must be in Steve's office when he said he would be. They would agree on their schedule at the beginning of their coaching, allowing for vacations, conferences, etc. After that, their sessions had to be absolute priority over everything that came up. Number three, he must be open to what Steve said. Very likely, it would not be what William wanted to hear. And number four, he must be willing to learn to love. When William hedged, Steve picked up a $150,000 check and tore it into pieces. William's jaw dropped. William was a billionaire. No one talked to him like that. No one disregarded his money like that. It got his attention. He committed. He pulled out of his checkbook and started to write another check. And cut off your left testicle and your right pinky finger and give them to me with your check. William's head jerked up. Steve was smiling. But he was also serious, not about the testicle or the pinky finger, but about the importance of commitment. For Steve, commitment is fundamental. Like being your word, it is something he works on with every client. One of the analogies Steve uses to teach commitment is what he calls a mother's commitment. Steve says to his clients, especially clients who are mothers, that he is going to show them the model of commitment. I'm going to ask you a question. Don't think about it for a long time. Just answer the question. Are your kids going to starve? The mother belts out an instant, unequivocal no. They don't ask for clarification, said Steve. It doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter if there's a trucking strike. It doesn't matter if there's a quarantine and the shelves in the grocery stores are depleted. They will do whatever it takes so their kids don't starve. That is commitment. Before Tom McGovern committed to working with Steve, Steve had a conversation with him about commitment. It wasn't a one and done. They periodically circled back to commitment during their coaching. Steve used an analogy that Tom has frequently shared and still uses to this day. Imagine you're with a group of 50 people. These are your people. It could be a church group, your local Rotary Club, whatever. When you ask who can help you set up chairs for the meeting next Saturday at 8 a.m., 10 people raise their hand. Saturday morning comes and not everybody who committed to be there is there at 8 a.m. Name some reasons people might give for not showing up, said Steve. I had a flat tire. I ran out of gas. I overslept. I forgot. Steve continues, if you were to listen to these reasons on the left side of the piece of ledger paper, how long would the list be? How many possibilities are there? Dozens? Hundreds? Now, on the right side of the ledger paper, write how you know if someone has honored his commitment. How long is that list? How many possibilities are there? The list is short. There is but one possibility. He showed up at 8. He did what he said he would do. Then pointing to the right side of the paper, Steve says, that's me. That's my life. I am commitment. Tom reflects, I certainly get that about Steve. If he says he's going to do something, you can bank on it. It is a very, very, very powerful way of living. It is how Steve lives, even in extreme circumstances. Martine Cannon relates how she learned this. When I coached with Steve, I was flying back and forth from London to see him. I flew for 14 hours, arrived in Phoenix, stayed at one of his clients' apartments, woke up the first thing the next morning, drove to his house, coached for 2 hours, went straight to the airport and flew back home. I did this every 14 days, so it was a big commitment. Steve always said that it was not the commitment to him, it was a commitment to myself. I had a year and a half of flights booked in advance. Just a few days before our first coaching session, Steve emailed me and said, I'm really sorry, but my wife's mother has passed away. The funeral is set for the day we are meeting. I fully expect to read a bit further, and he would say, I won't be able to see you. I would lose money canceling my flights, but that was irrelevant. That was an unforeseen, very personal circumstance. Instead, he went on to say, I can meet you at our normal time because that is the exact time of the funeral service. Can we move it a few hours later? I will make sure that it's the best session you'll ever have. I remember reading that and feeling really emotional about the extraordinary level of commitment that he had for me, but even more for his word. He talks about, I am my word. Whatever words come out of my mouth is what exists. He really lives it. That completely changed my life in terms of being aware of what I say. Then he said, I'd like you to come to the funeral. I didn't want to intrude into his family space at a time like this, but he assured me that I was very welcome. It turned out his father-in-law passed a couple days later. Amy's parents had a beautiful love story, a love like no other. They ended up having a double funeral. I went to his house on the day of the funeral and spent time with him and Amy. I could clearly see the level of emotion both of them had. Then Amy left for the church. A little later, Steve and I drove there. I met quite a few people, family members, people who had known his father and mother-in-law. I felt like I was part of the family. I sat at the family table. I ate with them afterwards. It was a mind-blowing experience to be welcomed into somebody's world in such an intimate way, but never feeling like an accessory. It was like, you're going to be here because you are part of a commitment that was made. Sorry, I just lost my page here. Give me a second. Come on, Kindle. There we go, okay. You're going to be here because you were a part of commitment that was made. Things happen it doesn't change the commitment. After that extraordinary experience of being with his family and hearing the profound love story of his mother and father-in-law, and being touched by hearing Amy and her sister speak about the love and respect they have for their parents, he then drove me home and we had a normal session together. But the session wasn't essential. I've learned so much already. The passing of your mother-in-law and father-in-law is a pretty good reason to renegotiate a commitment, but Steve doesn't look for reasons that are good enough for people to buy. He looks for ways he can keep his commitment. His commitments aren't burdens. They are access to freedom and power, says Steve. People who understand commitment and live from it produce amazing results. Integrity. Steve is an amazing coach, says Van Durham. He has the ability to identify when an individual is out of balance and out of integrity. Then he guides you to become balanced and back in integrity. Sometimes guide, in quotations, isn't quite the right word. Sometimes it feels more like a shove. Just ask Jeff Dinsdale. I was 22 years old. I was working at the University of Phoenix in sales. I had just hired Steve to be my coach, and my first session was at 9 a.m. I was supposed to be at work at 8. My boss was this ex-hockey player. He was a big macho guy, not this transformed guy. I was pretty sure that telling him I was going to meet with a life coach was not going to fly. So I called in and let him know that I'd be running a little bit late because my grandma had a heart attack and was in the hospital. Why did I say that? Because no one's going to come back and try to pin you on that. I showed up at Steve's, and when we started talking about what brought me here, I told him, man, I've done so much to get here and to have this session with you. I even told my boss this morning that my grandma's in the hospital. I was willing to do whatever it takes to be here. I didn't even realize how out of integrity I was. I was so blind to it. Steve said, I want to show you something. We went into his family room and he turned on the TV. He showed me a 60-minute segment about Bernie Madoff, whose one little white lie led to the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. He turned to me and said, that is what out of integrity behavior looks like. When I went to my work, I said to my ex-NHL big manly guy manager, hey bro, can we go on a walk? On the walk, I said, I just want to clean something up with you. My grandma wasn't in the hospital this morning. I just said that because I went to meet with a coach. And to be honest, I felt embarrassed and I felt nervous. I didn't know what to say and I wanted an out. He said, Jeff, thanks so much for sharing this. Do you know how many of these people I manage bullshit me every day about this sick person or that sick person? I know they're lying. So this was my first session with Steve. He smashed me over the head with integrity. That conversation changed the course of my life. Jeff's experience fits into this typical definition of integrity. Often, when Steve talks about integrity, he is using it as Michael C. Jensen, Werner Erhard, and Steve Zaffron use it. And ontological integrity. Simply stated, ontological integrity is honoring your word as you speak it to yourself and to others. It is not only doing what you said you would do, but also being the same person in the world that you are at your core. It is consistency of being. It's a lesson Steve taught Chris Doris. Chris relates. I've been a social worker, a licensed therapist, and a coach. I thought I got integrity. Steve had me see straight away that I don't know shit about integrity. I don't remember what the context was. I know that I wasn't late for my coaching. I would never have been late. Steve made the importance of being on time abundantly clear. I was definitely early for every appointment. I probably was acting arrogant, like I knew what was going on. He challenged me. He said, you're a liar. And I don't mean this in a harsh way. I mean that you're living in a lot of lies. I didn't comprehend that at first until he explained that he was talking about me pretending to be different than I really was. He challenged me to pay attention to all the times when that showed up. All right, let's do that. Cool. I actually thought it sounded pretty fun. That very week, I was hosting a Halloween party at my house. How much safer can you get? You're at your own home with all your friends. We were on the back patio drinking and standing in a circle. Everyone was talking about some movie. It was pretty clear that I was the only person who hadn't seen the movie. They were all dropping lines from it. I'm laughing and acting as if I had seen the movie. I don't know what I was thinking. Somehow, I was convinced that I couldn't let them know that I hadn't seen the movie. I'm not sure what would have been the problem with me saying I haven't seen this movie, but I'm sure as hell going to go see it now. It sounds like a great movie. It was a perfect wake-up call. I discovered I had a problem with what's real. I could also see all the extra work I do because of it. That alone has profoundly changed my life. The other thing I took away from that experience is how unbelievably dialed in Steve is and how fast he picks up on what is running you. It is instant. As soon as you open your mouth and say something. There has not been a day that has passed since he assigned me that exercise that I haven't practiced being at peace with what is and eliminate the lie that is, that this should be different. That is easily one of the biggest takeaways from my work with Steve. In his paper, Integrity, Without It Nothing Works, Michael Jensen writes, people tend to view integrity as a virtue that is a nice to have, but not as something that is directly related to performance. But the increase in performance that are possible by focusing on integrity are huge. I'm not talking like 10% increase in output or productivity. It's more like 100 to 500%. Steve falls in the 500% category. Integrity, being his word, and commitment, all the warp and woof of Steve's life. People notice. Coach Orrin Harris recalls. One day, Steve calls me up out of the blue. Oprah invited Iyanna to invite someone powerful and influential in Iyanna's life to appear on the show. Steve said, she invited me, but I declined. I don't do things like Oprah. I do this. I don't do that. That was expansive for me. In the moment, I was like, wow, here's a man who's so true and so aligned and so impeccable with who he is, what he does and what he says, that he is able to continually align with his power. The end.
Vignette, Kathy M. Catherine Thomas. It was February 2010. Steve had just finished reading a book I'd written, Light in the Wilderness. Synchronistically, that weekend I'd traveled from Provo to give some firesides in the Mesa area. On Sunday, at my last fireside, Steve and Amy came and sat in the left front row of this chapel. I didn't know anything about him or who he was. As I stood at the podium, I sensed a pretty intense energy coming from where he sat. He seemed really engaged. A day or so later, out of the blue, he phoned me. He said he was a coach. He pointed out some things he'd picked up on, said he knew what was important to me and what hurt me. He invited me to come work with him in Mesa, at least to try it out and see if we liked each other. He told me he could sit with a person and sense many things, could feel what was needed. I gathered he had some kind of intuitional gift. He could see into my mysteries and move me to greater clarity. I flew to Mesa 4 times, I think, to work with him in his little office by the pool. He asked me what kind of flag he should raise when I came to visit. Apparently, each client had his own flag. I chose the yin-yang symbol, which thereafter was always flying when I came. I sat on the little couch and he sat in his office chair. High energy, intense, ruthless, but also loving, which I interpreted then as over the top. But I got over my resistance and began to see into his genuinely loving and perceptive heart. For myself, I thought I looked like I had it all together. I was a professor in ancient scripture at BYU, a published author, a wife and mother of 6, an active member of my church. But I told him the truth, even though it sounded so trite. I just wasn't good enough. But he wouldn't accept that I wasn't good enough and introduced me to a truer way of being. He taught me to excavate for inner I ams, to activate my own real power. He also taught me to have power in my word. I could see from the stories he told of his own experiences that the heavens responded to his decision to be his word. He seems to harness the powers of the universe to bring good things to pass. He loves creating miracles. He has created many, and began to see a bigger world of much greater, even magical possibilities. I was never quite the same afterwards. I had a new vision. After working with Steve, I finished another book, The God Seed, in which I wrote, "We can wake up from the dream of hell. And when we wake up, we realize that our words are the instrument of creation. Let us become conscious of speaking as though God Himself were speaking, because if not, we may create chaos. Let us make the decision to be our word, and that what we say we mean, and that what we say we do, because we said it, and that's who we are." Pure Steve. That's how you move heaven and earth.
Wow. Readers, thank you so much for reading so powerfully. And I'm just going to give us all a little minute to just marinate in that experience. And then we're going to move on to shares. So before we start sharing, I'd like to just invite the possibility of a commitment right now. If anyone has a pen and paper, if you don't, then I'd invite you to get one. And what I would invite you to do in this space, we ask you to share about you. We also recognize that acknowledgements are incredibly powerful creations. And what I would invite right now is, if there's something that someone shares that sparks something in you, that ignites something that you would love to acknowledge them for, write their name, write down what you'd like to say as an acknowledgement, do it directly, do it via the Facebook group and tag them, and make that acknowledgement outside of this space. Because when you're in this space, we really just want to hear about you and get to know you and your insights and your life. So if you're willing to make that commitment, then raise your hand and let's get committed and let's be our word. Yeah? All right. Amazing. Love this. I'm excited to see what we create from this. So, sharing, Elizabeth, I would love to hear your experience of this chapter, please, if you're willing to share.
Yes, thank you. There was so much. This is one of the chapters. I mean, there's just so many and so much, but one of the chapters that had changed my life for me when I read it. And I didn't realize this before, but in the vignette, it really summed that up for me. And it's like I'm reading this for the first time, that last little bit, when we wake up, we realize our words are the instruments of creation. And of course, Steve says that, but she recaps that in those few sentences at the very end of that vignette. And it just kept the way Amy wrote this and the way everyone contributed to this point of being in integrity and being with our word. It was just really, really powerful for me. And for me personally, and it's not highlighted, but I saw it again, and I don't remember where I highlighted it again in my book, but it's the word that we hear to ourselves, for ourselves. It's not just because I'm really darn good at keeping my word to everyone else because I'm very particular about what I say I will or won't do for everyone else. But it's the word or the inspiration or the thought that comes to me for me about doing something or accomplishing something or finishing something or starting something, whatever it is, and then not following through on. So for me again, it's emotional. Really going back to being my word for me. Like I said, it's easy to be my word for everyone else, but to do that first for me is huge. And it's beautifully written and beautifully read today. So I appreciate that.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for that share. I don't know anyone that couldn't relate to that, anyone that I haven't had a conversation with where we can so easily put our hand up and step forward for others. We're built that way almost, is my experience. And then to turn that around and to turn that commitment inward and to turn that integrity and being your word to hear is the journey for me. So thank you for highlighting that. That's so incredibly powerful. Thank you. Wanda, we'd love to hear any insights or anything you have to share about this chapter.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for asking me. This is well, I believe that nothing is by chance, including how I connected with this book and this group. And the chapter that is being studied today. Because what I've found for myself is that I make a declaration in relation to a commitment, and then I have a challenge keeping my word on it. And I don't feel good about that. And so I question, okay, so why do I do that? Why does that happen? And I think it's partly because I like to feel connected. I like to feel in community and part of community. And so let's say there's a group who says, well, this is what we're going to do, then, and it sounds good to me. And so then I say, okay, I'm in. And so that's something for me to look more closely at. And because I want to feel amazing, like all of the time. And regardless of what others might say, I believe that's possible. And a piece of this chapter that really, really stands out for me today is what Steve says, let us become conscious of speaking. I don't know if it was Steve that said it, but anyhow, it's in the book. Let us become conscious of speaking as though God himself were speaking. That is powerful. And I think, I believe, this is what I'm thinking in the moment, is that by doing that, I will become more conscious of what I'm saying. And as a result, I'll be quite likely speaking less. And I believe that that's a good thing, because when I do speak, I desire it to be that type of speaking that is referenced in this book. Thank you very much.
Wanda, thank you. That's highlighting the power of the word and the power of our language, and how I think we can all be sloppy, and it's just about keeping coming back to the consciousness. We keep noticing and we move forward, and we keep noticing and we move forward. And certainly this past year, since having this community, I notice a lot more when I'm being sloppy. So thank you for highlighting the power of the word.
Thank you.
Karan, your hand is up. You're eager. I'd love to hear what you have to share.
Yeah, no, this is just such a powerful chapter, as others have said, and in the shares that I've had, especially in Wanda speaking, there's a couple things that she was speaking. I could relate to it so deeply from when I started the journey of working with Steve, right? So I want to share two things that are completely, these are ancillary concepts, but they are like mastering them is critical to really understanding commitment for me. So I'm hoping the way that it has landed on me, maybe has an impact on others. So the first one is forgiveness. So the idea is not that we say we're going to make a declaration and we become it. The idea is, I don't care how long it takes for me to keep cleaning up and coming back. It is the intention is not to be this person who becomes this declaration machine. The intention is to become this person that if you mess up 50 times, you're coming back 51st time and reading out that declaration again, right? So it's getting into this beautiful habit of forgiveness and consistency. And the reason a lot of the times, what I found for myself early on in my journey, I would beat myself up because all of us want to be integrity. And it was just I said I would do this, I didn't do it, I'm a terrible person, I don't have self-discipline, whatever it was. And it was the teaching from Steve, this concept of forgiveness. Every time you do that, the minute you realize you are not in integrity, that awareness puts you back in integrity. So it is such a beautiful, it's blessed are the ones who can't keep their word because they have more chances to become more integrous, right? And so for whoever is out there that's struggling with this concept of, that's the whole game. I mean, we're going to be on this planet for, whatever amount of time. That's the only game you need to play. Don't worry about the outcome. Just know that regardless of how many times you come out of integrity, you have a chance once again to get back into integrity. And every time you do that, something in your soul deepens a little bit because it speaks to your commitment to coming back to this. And do it with just a kind heart and just forgiveness. That's one piece. The other one, and we kind of imply it, but we don't talk about it in kind of as a direct ancillary concept to commitment. It's adversity. I believe adversity is a catalyst for becoming an extraordinary human being, and nothing tests your commitment like adversity, right? And so just kind of changing our relationship to, hard things and adversity, and using that literally as a crucible within which our commitment gets tested and forged, right? So when things show up that are hard, instead of being like, oh my God, now my commitment is like, holy shit, I get yet another opportunity to literally forge my commitment in this crucible of adversity. What's going to come out on the other side is going to be so powerful. Right. So, and these are not just concepts, right? Like these are the two ancillary concepts to commitment that have really had an impact on my life in the last 6 to 7 years. And all of these came out of multiple conversations with Steve around me not keeping my commitments, me feeling bad about not keeping my commitments, or me only keeping my commitments when it was convenient to me and there was no adversity that was keeping me from my commitment. So forgive yourself for when you fall off the wagon. Your awareness brings you right back and you're better off for it. And literally every time something tough shows up for you that challenges your commitment, get excited about the opportunity. Because if you can stay committed to this one thing, your commitment level, if a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Steve level of commitment, it's like, man, I just jumped a notch. And every time you do that, and once you get to a place of commitment, you have to have daily habits to keep it. But once you learn it, it's very hard to unlearn it because your soul's not going to let you go back to a lower version of you once you experience a higher version of you. So I just wanted to share that. And thank you for the beautiful shares before me. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Karan. That was really powerful, really generous, and absolutely transformational, because yeah, there's commitment, and yeah, there's integrity, and yeah, there's being your word, and we're all human, and we get to keep flexing that muscle with forgiveness and compassion. And what a beautiful message that is. Thank you for that incredibly potent reminder for that passion, compassion, and forgiveness of self. And about intention, we get to just keep having that intention and know that we're gonna keep failing forward. I love that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Marion, I'd love to hear what you have to share.
Yeah. I was listening intently to what Karan said, and the idea of adversity, not just the idea, but the actual experience of adversity is it's the failing forward. And this is what I love about the American mentality, because in Germany, you just fail. In America, you fail forward. And this has been really an empowering experience for me. And I just want to talk really briefly about an experience I had just, I think it was yesterday or the day before, with my son, because I have a declaration in my document that concerns my son and how and who I am being for him and with him. And he is going through a period of where he is trying to convince people of the one truth, and the one truth being exemplified by a certain party. And it's very hard for me to talk to him because there's no play. And so we had this discussion, and he was just asking for yes and no answers. And it was so hard for me to talk to him. And in the first conversation we had, we almost got into a shouting match. And I walked out and I was like rattled. And I thought, damn, I can't believe I wasn't being who I am for me and for my son. And second day I went back and we had a second conversation, and it was better. I got better at it, at being who I am. And so it is this moment of searing hot realization of who I am being or who I am not being. And this adverse moment just raises my level of consciousness. And that is all I have. That's all I have. How conscious I am in the moment. Yeah, so thank you.
Marion, thank you. I'm relating to that so much. You know, we all have relationships and children that we have intentions of being a certain way, and then something will happen and it'll knock us off our being. And as Karan pointed to, once we've got to a certain level of consciousness, we feel the difference. It doesn't mean we're not going there, but we feel it. And in that awareness, we get to come back to ourselves and make that choice each time and keep flexing that muscle. So thank you. I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that, and it was really powerful. Thank you for sharing. All right. Dave Berman had his hand up first. Please, if you would share with us. Two Daves.
My first call in a while. It's good to be back.
Thanks for being here.
Keeping this going. Well, I want to just take a second to say my Vietnamese name because it's in a lot of my posts these days, and you can see it along with my English name right here. And yeah, people never know how to say it. It's Dun Zan. Dun Zan. So there you go.
Thank you.
I want to acknowledge Elizabeth and Karan and read a couple of sentences from the chapter that really jumped out at me, and they're all connected. So Elizabeth, the whole idea of being honest with yourself is what I saw as the opportunity when I was reading this book the first time, thinking, I'm not going to create a document. Like this isn't something I'm going to do. And as I continued to read, and the things that were showing up in my audio journals at the time led me to sort of flag a couple of thoughts that became the seeds of my first declarations. And as I kept reading, the document was being created, and I wasn't really even doing it by choice. So the idea of being and this book and our community, all of it as a like a vehicle for exploring how can I be more honest with myself. I call that ruthless honesty. When I'm not in integrity, if I'm not being honest with myself. So yeah, I feel you on that. I want to acknowledge you for that, and you know, that's something I'm working on too. And the Nanuchka, am I saying your name right? You flagged something that Karan said, nothing tests your commitment like adversity. And that's where this whole ruthless honesty exploration has brought me now, like to a point of adversity where what's popped up is these few sentences I want to share from the book. The key word for me is ontological. So it says, simply stated, ontological integrity is honoring your word as you speak it to yourself and to others. It is not only doing what you said you would do, but also being the same person in the world that you are at your core. It is consistency of being. So I've read the book a few times and I've been on these calls. And so clearly, like, I've encountered that word ontological before. But I encountered it maybe like 2 months ago or so, during the gap between when I was last on one of these calls and now. And it was as if I was seeing the word for the first time. And it was it made me realize that the book I just published is essentially the ontology of Dun Zan, like the worldview that I am growing into as I'm learning to be Dun Zan is an ontology that it looks so clear and obvious to me, so I should be able to live by it, of course, right? But I'm not always honest with myself, and so, like, you know, living up to this book that you know, it's out now, and yeah, the whole being exploration has been instrumental in getting this book out. It's called The Simple Book of Infinity. And that's why I flagged what I wrote when the word ontological was read to us by Quran. I wrote ontology equals infinite supplies always available. Your infinite imagination supply. Infinite possibilities supply. So, and it goes from there. So
Thank you. Dave.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that and your journey into your creation and stepping into being. That's what we're always doing, right? We're always coming back to stepping in. Thank you. Karan, your hand is still up. Do you have something else that you'd like to share with us? Okay.
Nope, I'm good. I don't know how to put it down. That's why.
Okay. There you go. There you go. Thank you very much, Dave Orton. I'd love to hear what you have to say on this
Thank
chat.
you. Thanks to our readers. Thanks, Karan. Great to see you too. Appreciate that shout out. It's great to look forward to seeing you soon, man. I love this this chapter about integrity. I often in my life had conflated morality with integrity. You know, I was a Boy Scout, the son of an Eagle Scout and Eagle Scout, and brothers. All my brothers were Eagle Scouts. Woohoo! And so integrity to me meant being honest and upright and forthright and Dudley do right in different things. And what integrity in this context means is no more or less than being your word and cleaning up when you're not. And my religious background is follows the Judeo-Christian path, and the commandment, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, didn't actually mean what I thought it meant growing up, which is don't say oh my God, and don't say the name of Jesus as swear words. That's what I was taught. That's what I understood. What it actually meant was that when you swear you'll do something by the name of your God, you do it so that the name is not lessened in power. It was a commandment to increase the integrity of the name of God. And that has a lot of power. I loved what was read today about when we speak, let us speak as though our words were words of God, the great I am. And the beautiful thing about this for me is what Karan mentioned. My document is aspirational. I am it and I am becoming it at the same time. And the restoration of integrity allows me to keep going when I'm not that in a particular moment. And I notice more and more that as I'm coming through these moments where it is quote unquote difficult, we'll call it the adversity, difficult to be my word, difficult to be the person I am in my document, I notice that the more I am being the document, the more I am being powerful in my life. We had a couple of events this week that were testing my resolve of being loving. Because man, my old patterns those situations would not have brought forth the loving version of me. And in one really difficult one came through great. And in another one, I kind of fell short and then restored it. And you know what? Those are both wins. There was no failures. Failing forward was the second one, I suppose, is how we could call that in the Deutsche Sprache. The German thing that Marianne had shared before. Anyway, this is a mountain with no top. integrity seems to always be going out. And so for me, I notice that the power is not in being my word and then just staying there. The power is in being my word and then cleaning up and then cleaning up and forgiving and forgiving and cleaning up and restoring that word and recreating my commitment to it. And that is who I am. And thank you. That's it. I'm done.
You are that, Dave Orton. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your unwavering ability to just keep coming back, because we fall down. I feel like this is the theme of the shares, right? We're all just displaying our humanity. We can put everyone on a pedestal out there and we can see, oh, look at this person, they are commitment. They're in commitment all the time. And the standard we set for ourselves is so high, and then the judgment keeps us in place of not being able to move forward, as opposed to, oh, look, that didn't go the way I wanted to. As Steve would say, well, what do we want to create from here? Let's not judge it. Let's just get back in integrity. The awareness brings us back into integrity. I love that, Karan. Thank you. Anne-Marie, have we got, Tanya, have we got time for one more? Yeah, smashing, lovely. Anne-Marie, love to hear what you have to share.
Oh, first of all, I would really like to thank Karan for coming and reading today, especially because he was, I believe, the subject of the demolition phase where, you know, he was at his great adversity, and Steve said, burn it all down. And as many of you know from my openness and my vulnerability, that I've been burning it all down all year long. And today, thank you for sharing that adversity is actually the crucible, and that I'm going to be coming out of it very, very soon, and knowing that it was not for naught, right? It was not for nothing that I experienced all of this. And I realized like how much I give others and how much I sacrifice, and then how much I sacrifice for myself, for being out of integrity, for my own commitments. And here I was this morning out of integrity with my own commitment because I invited our guest reader, and then I was late because I was being committed to my future self, right? That I'm creating this super powerful future from the ash, from the gradients of gray of the ash of my demolition. And yet there's still one glowing ember underneath all of that. And I love to use the expression that I must raise it with a Z to raise it with the S, right? So the demolition is down. I've just taken it into the rubble. I'm crawling across the rubble. My footing is a little unstable. That's where it's hard to stay into integrity and commitment. But this morning, I was powerful before I got on this call. I was more powerful within this call. I've never had my husband listen to one of these calls ever. We are being divorced after 40 years. And he was in the bathtub, and I just said, you must listen to this man read. And when Karan shared again, I brought the phone again. I said, you must listen to him speak. Because when he speaks, particularly to me, he speaks volumes, not just one edition, right? Right. So it's like getting the entire encyclopedia, not just the P. And so I just want to thank you for revitalizing my spirit, my soul, rejuvenating and resuscitating my commitment and integrity to myself. And I just feel very much invigorated and in alignment from this call. And I just wanted to say how good my husband now feels about his level of integrity and where he is not being committed to himself, to his family. And actually, I had him set some intentions as well. So this year is off to a good start. Thank you. The gates are open. This horse is running. The race is on. See you there. I love you all.
Love you, Anne-Marie. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing you, energetic, powerful you. Love it. Love it. Thank you all so much for sharing, for listening. and for being present here in this call today. One final invitation before I sign off, and I'm gonna have to leave actually when I pass it over because I have my commitment as a mother to go and pick up my children. So who wrote down their acknowledgements? Yeah, amazing. I'd like you to have a little look down at the paper, look down, mentally or physically, score out that person's name and all of those beautiful positive qualities that you've seen in another. Write "I am" up there and declare it to yourself, because there's not a single thing we see in anyone else that isn't present in our own being. So thank you all for this incredible, incredible time together. I am going to love you and leave you now, and I'm going to pass you over to the beautiful Tanya to close us out. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you everyone for joining us today and doing everything that you had to do to get here. Before we do close out, and thank you, Emma, as I know that you're heading out quickly, so thank you. I would love to call on Martha. Martha, would you like to share?
Just, I would like to ask a question of Karan, if he would be willing to just share a little bit about the demolition and how commitment came into play for you in that particular experience in your life.
Sure, happy to share it. I'm going to assume everybody's read the book and has a basic understanding. So I was CEO of a fairly large company, a great company. It was not for me, and decided to go down a different path. And the different path literally was starting from scratch, leaving that business, telling my board of directors I no longer wanted to run the company and start my own firm. So literally bring an idea out of my head into existence, into this physical world that required a lot of time, energy, and capital, and had a lot of risk associated with it. But the funny thing is, when you get to a place where you really figure out what you want, right? And you do enough work to figure out that, like this is for me. There's a different level of conviction that shows up that feeds into this commitment of moving forward on that path, right? Committing to something that is not for you will never work. So I know we don't talk about this often enough. You know, a lot of people make commitments. Well, I want to be healthy, or I want to be whatever it might be, but it's a commitment they're borrowing from somebody else. To see somebody do something, and they also want to have that, and they kind of make that commitment. That commitment lacks, it's not alive, it's not breathing, it's not yours, right? So the first thing I would say, and this is a segue from the specific question you asked, is when you make big commitments, do the work to make sure they're for you. They light your soul on fire. Like my goosebumps, I don't know if you can see it, like I have goosebumps in my body just talking about this right now. When I sat there and I said, I'm going to burn this whole thing down with Steve, it was the scariest and the most exciting thing. I mean, I was giving up a 25-year career to go start something else, right? And so the first thing I would say is the reason it's never easy, and it's not meant to be. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it, and you really wouldn't want it after you got it anyway, right? So your commitment should be something that's really big, that's really scary, but it should also be exceptionally exciting, because if you think about, if I come through on the other side of commitment, what the fuck could that look like, right? And that should absolutely, every cell in your body should wake up and do a little dance and be like, holy shit, that's the life I want, right? And so it was less about having discipline to make sure I was so excited to go down this path, and I was so scared at the same time. And I think, so that's number one, make commitments about things. You know, one of the things I talk about internally in my company is in these contexts is make the kind of commitments where, and we have little commitments to make too, right? Like brush your teeth daily, you know, feed your dog, like whatever. I get that. I'm talking about these big transformational commitments. If you make a commitment and you follow through with that commitment, and the commitment were to come through, your life biography should be different than what it would have been before you made that commitment, right? So think about that. When that's what's driving you, compliance comes from within. right? So that's one part of it. The second one is more on the discipline side, and I think that kind of goes back to, you know, when Wanda was speaking. It's just like what you have to assign meaning to things. So I started assigning meaning to not when I was failing, but I started assigning meaning to when I was cleaning up my commitments. So to me, you know, sometimes I was like, maybe I was failing on purpose because I wanted to pat myself on the back for kind of getting back on the horse. But I changed my relationship with what it meant, what commitment meant. It wasn't one and done. It was, I drink water every day. I take a shower every day. I cut my nails every week. You know, it's like things that you're committed to, you do repeatedly. And the same thing, forgiveness, you do repeatedly. Cleanups, you do repeatedly. And if you change that, then it's not this one big thing that's hanging over you that makes you feel like you are less than because you failed at it, right? Because you didn't fail at it. You had a misstep and you corrected, and every time you corrected, you got more committed. The commitment is just kind of it's either a vicious cycle or a virtuous cycle. You pick. But I have yet to know. I consider myself a very committed human being, and I can assure you, I fall short on my commitments all the time. But I'll give myself credit for this. What I'm really good at, I don't let it go weeks. Like it's days, if not hours, if not minutes, you know, of me restoring it, so that gap of time where I'm out of commitment, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And so if you look at it from afar, it looks like I'm always committed. But what you're not seeing is you're seeing this big linear line. You're not seeing the little gaps in there. So what happens? You're committed. You're going this way. You fail in a commitment, you fall down, right? All right, let me get committed. I'm back at my commitment level. That's what it looks like. But if your gaps are really small, you kind of can't see them. And so for all of you, when you look at other people and you start beating yourself up over the fact that, oh my God, this person could stay committed for hours and days and months and years and eons, that's not what they're doing. All they're doing is there's a level of equanimity in how quickly they bounce back from when they are not committed. The periods of non-commitment get shorter and shorter. The instances of non-commitment are potentially just the same as yours, right? So I think those are a couple things that I could share for the specific question you asked, Martha. Hopefully that answers it.
It does. Thank you so much. It makes me, what comes forward for me is the compassionate self-forgiveness that you had talked about earlier. The fact that in the humanness of my being, it's restoring that place where I may have fallen short.
Yeah.
And it's not staying in the habit of blaming and beating myself up, because in the reality, it's all ego-centeredness, ego resource, versus really coming back to the being that I am and forgiving myself for the shortcoming, for the moment.
I'll take it even a step further. So and everybody's modality of how they revitalize themselves to take action is different. So if yours happens to be that a little bit of tough talk with yourself, you know, and a little bit of beating of yourself is what's required, great. I'm not here to change that. Make that time period and how long you sit in that shorter. Don't beat yourself up over a week, right? Take 2 hours, you know, self-flagellation of the highest level, but then you're back on. Right. So whatever it is that takes you to kind of clean it up and get back into commitment, your modality could be different. Mine tends to be self-forgiveness. Yours could be beat up, you know, who knows? But the process that makes it work is to literally equanimity. You go off here, how quickly can you come back? That's all it is. And you can find the way, you find that equanimity. I think that's yours personally. But I do believe forgiveness works beautifully.
Thank you so much. Thank you for adding that to our call today. Thank you, Karan.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Karan. Thank you, Martha, for that awesome question. My goodness, I've heard so much valuable information today, and I feel like I even heard the chapter for the first time from a different angle. And what really stands out to me today is even an extension from what Karan just said, and he gave me an added word to add to. I always go by this C rule kind of thing that I tell myself when I feel out of alignment or I really don't know what I want, and I'm just kind of in the space of creation. And it goes like this: it's clear the clutter and chaos for clarity and creativity, so I can be calm and confident through my choices, through my commitment, and through my conviction. And conviction was that added piece today for me, Karan. So thank you, because I feel like where I have found myself in commitment is when I have fallen off the wagon, and then I wind up just being there, sitting there for a little bit longer than what I would really want to be. So I love what's been said today about recommitting, just recommitting. And, and Karan, you had said it earlier. I don't care how long it takes or how many times it takes for me to get back up and recommit, clean it up, step back up, and just recommit into and towards the things that you want to create in your life. And right now, that's the beautiful thing about being that I'm experiencing as I'm growing through this book. And as I believe many of us are experiencing and asking this question, who am I being and how am I being? And we have the opportunity through that powerful awareness to shift our being at any time into a new direction or redirecting it into the direction that we want to go in. So oh my goodness. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for this really powerful chapter entering into the new year of 2024. I feel like it's a great way to start off. We ended 2023 with reviewing chapter 28, the document. And so I believe many of us had ventured into recreating or awareness of our documents and putting our documents into action. And if we haven't, that's okay. Guess what? We can recommit. We can recommit at any moment of time. Such a powerful statement. And so with that, I just really want to thank Karan for saying yes to being here today, and doing what he had to do to be here, to share his powerful experiences, not only with Steve, but through the book and through his ventures in creation. And he will be a guest at the Arizona Experience, which I have to say, the Arizona Experience 2 years ago completely changed my life. And it was through commitment. It was through the commitment to be there. I had so many adversities come up in front of me that could have easily blocked me from getting there, but I still carried on by being my word to Julie Westover and Alex DeMoss, and I was there, and it changed my life. I believe it's changed my life forever. And so I look forward to meeting many of you there. If you haven't grabbed your tickets, I believe there's only about 30 tickets left for the Arizona Experience. It is in January, the 25th or 26th and 27th. And if you would like more information on the tickets for that, please type in the chat yes, and we will make sure that you get them. Really also want to say thank you so much to our guest readers, Elizabeth. Thank you, Elizabeth, for opening us up and reading the back of the book so beautifully. And I always love to listen to what you have to share. I feel you. Like I resonate with so much that you say. And so thank you for sharing, because you help grow me through your shares as well. So thank you for your presence. And Wanda, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the call for the first time. Thank you so much for reading before you begin as well. Your share was very powerful as well. So thank you for being here. And I hope to see you next time as well. We do have an upcoming chapter this coming Wednesday, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But I also want to thank Marion. Marion, thank you for spontaneously being willing to volunteer to reading that vignette. We thought we'd open it up a little different to the community and allow that space to invite somebody from the community today that was present on the call. And I would like to thank our team TUC, who works diligently in the background, who have been working. Now we have created, ladies and gentlemen, we have created 29 events plus 4 events, pre-season events, for just season 4. So thank you so much for your collaboration and your co-creation with me for our community in service of you. And this coming Wednesday on December 10th, we have our upcoming chapter 30, and that is Thought to Action. And so please join us at 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. And so again, I think most of you know about the Arizona experience, and there's a huge list of just phenomenal and impactful speakers that will be there. But truly, as I believe, the most important person in that room will be you, because the power is in the listener. And so each and every person has an opportunity to be there and to take away their own gold, as I hope that you as well receive some gold from today's call as well. And then we also have our upcoming experience in Birmingham, and that will be in May, and May 25th and May 26th of 2024. It's called 2B24, the Birmingham experience. And if you'd like more information on that, we'd be happy to get that information to you as well. And if you are new to the call or new to the group, please know that we have additional resources that are extremely extensive, like our podcast, our Ultimate Coach podcast, which has phenomenal interviews on it weekly, as well as our YouTube channel has powerful speeches on there. You'll be able to find many of Karan Rai's powerful speeches from the previous experiences. Well, not many, but you'll be able to see several of his speeches and from his experiences at the Ultimate Experience in London, as well as in Mumbai. And we also have the Ultimate Coach Instagram, as well as the Ultimate Coach LinkedIn group. And so we also, my goodness, the Ultimate Coach group, Facebook group, is here to serve you. And that's why we have so many different channels and so many opportunities for each of us to grow our being. And so I would also like to introduce to you the Friday live interviews that are on by Cassie Footman and Carrie Rickabaugh. And they have live interviews every Friday. I believe the most recent one was with Becky Robbins, and I believe they've had Alex Tomas, I believe the Gilmans, and so many phenomenal opportunities to listen and learn and grow your being. And as well as in the Ultimate Coach Extras, which are parts of the Ultimate Coach that didn't make it into the book, into the final copy, but boy, are they powerful. And so you can also reach them at the ultimatecoachextras.com. So with all that being said, there is a lot here for you, but this is a time where we move the call into what we call our afterglow, where we will turn off all recordings and we will give an opportunity for anybody that would like to share with the recordings off. So oftentimes our opportunity to share here is vulnerable, authentic, and deeper. And this is where powerful transformation occurs as well. So if you have the time and space to stay with us, I encourage you to do so. If not, I honor you. I honor our time together. And thank you so much for being willing to say yes to grow your being today with us, joining us in community for the Ultimate Coach Book Reading. So at this time, I'd like to invite everybody to go ahead and take yourselves off mute. And if this is your goodbye, then we will see you next time. But if not, hold on tight and we'll move into the afterglow. So again, thank you so much for being here with us today. Take care.
Thanks, Karan.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Buddha, especially for your.
Appreciate you all.
Good
to see you
Rebecca, it's so fantastic to see you here. P.
Awesome
Games.
shares.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Great